Greetings, everyone, and welcome to today's message. On the Gregorian calendar, today's date in the year 2025 is April 16th. On the biblical calendar, this is the 18th day of the first month of the biblical year, Aviv. And that's a beautiful thing because 18 Hebraically represents life. So I just declare and decree by faith, just my faith, decreeing my faith aloud, that this is the beginning of new life for all of us who are crossing over, who are passing over and entering into the next phase of our promise as we continue to ascend the mountain, seeking the Father and allowing Him to do what is necessary to reveal, to purge, to search our hearts and create in us clean hearts, everything that is necessary for us to be ones who will ascend the mountain with clean hands and pure hearts. So today's message is just sharing for encouragement and just a reminder, because as I've been walking out and beginning to complete this Chronos phase of my journey, something very clear has been made even more clear. You know, we have levels, I believe we have levels of understanding and learning until we get to the fullness of understanding a spiritual concept, a spiritual paradigm, if you will, God's paradigm and understanding. And many of us, all of us grew up and we have heard something like Matthew 25:23 repeated to us. And that's where Yeshua shares the parable of the servants, the parable of the talents, and the one who was faithful and sowed the 5 talents so that he multiplied it to 10 was ultimately one who in the parable is demonstrated as one who Yeshua and therefore God will say of, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in a few things. I will make you ruler over much." So we've heard that. If you're faithful in a few things, if you're faithful in the little, you'll be made ruler over much. Here's the reality. And here's what I want to encourage us with, because right now, many of us are experiencing instruction and direction and being given assignments that seem small, might even seem in the big picture of what God is doing in your life and where God is sending you, might even seem insignificant. But just in prayer and walking this out and completing things, God is repeatedly reminding me of the responsibility that comes with being made rulers over much. And in that, I don't mean a dominionist rulership. I don't mean a fiefdom. I don't mean that in the way that the world, the Babylonian and Egyptian, the Greco-Roman system defines rulership. I don't mean that in the self-centered, selfish, me way. I truly mean this in the way that we are intended to rule over the place where God positions us, where we place our feet. He says in the first covenant, he says those are the places where he will give us authority, rulership, all the places he sends us. I mean it in the way of service, in the way of completing our part of God's kingdom assignment for our generation, and then preparing the generation behind us. Rulership comes with responsibility. And righteous rulers recognize that the responsibility is for the goodness of those around them, more than it is even for their own comfort or their own reward. It's for the goodness of those around them. Because every act of responsible obedience to what God sends us into weakens and even to a certain extent destroys what the enemy and where the enemy had established any level of authority. And so I want to encourage you today, as you hear the Father, as you receive instruction in prayer, as you receive words of direction, as you're reading the word and sitting with him in your quiet time, being with the Father in the secret place, hear and obey, Shema, what he tells you. It could be as small as, I want you to go to this market, and I want you to be prepared to speak to a person who walks in the market. Like, it seems overall like a little thing. Maybe, not for me anymore, but maybe that seems like a little thing. Or it could be, I want you today to set aside time to do this yard work. I want you today to set aside time to go to this particular store and to buy this specific thing. You know, all of those things that maybe in the busyness or even in just our pursuing God and wanting him, you know, to part the heavens and come down and speak to us on the mountain like he did Moses, maybe we missed the small things. But this is a time where it's important to hear him, to Shema, to obey the small things, and trust him, staying in peace always, right? Staying in peace, proclaiming peace be still, even when he sends us to speak to the mountains, proclaiming peace be still, and trusting him with the outcome. I will say this again about a man whose ministry helped me during a time where I wasn't necessarily receiving exegesis, line upon line, precept upon precept. There was a level of teaching from Charles Stanley that really helped me. And he said something, and this was decades ago, before God led me into the deeper things, looking for the Hebraic understanding the historical and the practical, even some of the rabbinical and Hebraic understanding of things. But at that time, those years in my life, just the pure simplicity of Charles Stanley's heart toward knowing the word, teaching the word, seeking God, and obeying God really helped. And he said this, and I'm going to say it aloud again, because it's something that all of us can be blessed by. It's not our ceiling, but it is a foundational truth of God. Obey God and leave the consequences to him. Jehovah is big enough. Anything that he sends you into, even the small things, especially the small things, have a purpose. There's a rippling effect in our lives, your life, and in the spiritual realm. So obey God and leave the consequences to him. Father, I thank you for this time. I thank you for each one listening. I thank you for strong words. I thank you for words of encouragement. I thank you for everything that you're doing in and on our behalf at this time. I thank you that even now, Father God, you have directed us to the places where we are to dust off our feet and take our peace with us. I thank you that we walk in the peace of Yehoshua HaMashiach, that the world didn't give and the world can't take away. So cover and keep each one of us now. And in the name of the Most High, I declare and decree, let Jehovah arise and all of his enemies be scattered. God bless you all, and I'll share with you when I'm next released. Take care.